Well, Russell Wilson is done cooking, and I think Brian Daboll is done as well. We'll talk about it here today.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is a fact. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. And this is The Barbershop, and I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of The Barbershop here on Locked On NFL, with my man David Harrison of Locked On Commanders as my Wednesday guest. And we're going to take you around the National Football League, tell you some of the biggest stories in this episode. That is wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap into that location so you don't miss an episode, whether you watch or listen. An episode like today that's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I'm going to let you know where Dave and I are going here today. We are going to, first of all, shout out to the everydayers and newcomers. Hey, we're glad to have you here. We do not like wasting your time, so I'm going to get right to the rundown here. We're going to end up talking about coaches. Tennessee and Texas, they got some hot seats going on. Not just hot food, but hot seats. Right in the middle of the show, Raheem Morris is making changes, but I think it might be a little bit too late. And as I stated before, we're going to start at the very top, talking about Russell Wilson. That's right, benched in favor of Jackson Dart. I really believe this, along with Daniel Jones, looking like the next coming of Joe Namath in Indianapolis, is really going to do Brian Daboll in sooner or later. So that's where we're going to start at. Dave, you right there in the NFC East. You've seen it firsthand. First, Saquon Barkley goes off and breaks records, and then Daniel Jones is looking like if the season ended right now, he'd be the MVP. That doesn't look good for Daboll, and now I think he's being desperate with what he's doing with Jackson Dart.
Yep, that's exactly what he's being. I mean, we talked about this on this very show ahead of the season, and I said it and I maintain it, that if I was John Mara, I would not let this front office, this coaching staff start Jackson Dart, because you have no business starting Jackson Dart. If you can't be successful with a veteran quarterback like Russell Wilson, look, Russell Wilson is not perfect by a long shot, but Russell Wilson has the experience. He has the mental capacity, all those things to be successful in the National Football League. I find it very hard to believe that Jackson Dart is going to come in and suddenly make the New York Giants some kind of contender. And that's nothing against Jackson Dart. I like Jackson Dart. I think he's got a much higher ceiling. I think he could be career-wise, I think he could be a better quarterback than Russell Wilson. But you just talk about these guys today. That's what we're talking about. Is Jackson Dart a better quarterback today for the New York Giants than Russell Wilson? No, he's not. Could Jackson Dart provide a shot in the arm, and could the other players all come through and pick up their game? Yeah, we've seen it a million times. It could absolutely happen. Is it going to happen against the Los Angeles Chargers? Probably not. And that's the other part of this that I have a problem with, Wig, because you look at the next two games for the New York Giants. They got the Los Angeles Chargers, and then they got the New Orleans Saints. Which one of those teams is the best team to roll out your rookie quarterback against? It's not the Chargers.
No.
You know what I mean? So if you want to make the decision behind closed doors, hey, Russ, you got one more shot at this thing, buddy. Jackson Dart's going to start against the New Orleans Saints and that relatively unhinged team down there in NOLA, and get Jackson Dart ready for 2 weeks to be the starting quarterback and pull Russell Wilson through for one more game and see what you can make happen. The bottom line is this. Brian Daboll and pretty much every other NFL head coach always preaches the best man for the job is going to play. So you mean to tell me that the best man for the job in the midst of that loss that you had this week in week 3 was still Russell Wilson, but now all of a sudden, without a practice, by the way, like there's been no practices since that game.
Right.
Now all of a sudden Jackson Dart, boom, he's just elevated to the point. No, this is a pure desperation move. This is maybe Jackson Dart can save my job move. It's classic. I'm drowning, so someone is going to drown with me. And in this case, it's Russell Wilson. I hate it for Russ. I hate it for anybody every time I see it happen. That's exactly what's happening right now. Because, Wig, what's really interesting is even if this thing is successful, it's going to take wholesale changes on the offense, which you could make with Russell Wilson in there, because you look at the overall pressures that the New York Giants have given up on their quarterback this year, it's 48. It's 7th in the NFL. So you're like, man, that's a lot of pressures. Why would you put a rookie back there? What's weird is they're actually ranked 16th in pressure rate. So they're not giving up a whole lot of pressures, What they're doing is they're giving up a whole lot of pressures per pass, I should say. What it is, they're just throwing the leather off the ball. So what are you going to do with Jackson Dart? You're probably going to come in, you're going to run the ball more with guys like Cam Scatterbo and your other running backs, and that's going to make your offense look more efficient. So do that with Russ. You don't have to put the rookie in jeopardy to do that. You can do that with your veteran.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to piggyback off of one of your ideas about what this looks like from the outside. But first, we're going to hear from Miss Patricia Training Up with Locked On Giants.
Look, this is Daboll's silver bullet, if you will. All right. All else has kind of failed him. He's not proving to be the offensive guru that everybody thought he was when he was hired. So this is pretty much it. This is a got to save my butt type of move for Daboll, right? He's got to save his job because, look, if the Giants season continues to spiral out of control, there will be changes made by ownership.
She is spot on with what you're saying, so I'll expound a little bit. This reminds me of college coach that has a hot shot freshman that he did not want to play. The season goes to crap. He sticks the freshman in, and even if they don't win, there's enough excitement and there's enough blue sky when you pay attention to his ability, and they might even win some games, and then it might galvanize the fans, and everybody thinks you're kind of on to something. And maybe if the dude has some decent look about himself, you see kids dressed up with little wigs that look just like his, and now you get jersey sales, and it'll be all of this optimism and what Brian Daboll could look the owner in the eye and say, you got to let us keep going with this right now. Don't break it. We see if we had done this early in the year, this kind of excitement, especially if they do, like they say, if they do what the quarterback down in Bryce did down in Carolina at the end of last year, where they didn't really win no games and light it up, but he just started to look a little bit better. That would be the calling card. They do this all the time in college, and I think that's what Daboll's trying to do right now with the Dolphins.
Yeah, look, stats can be dangerous, but stats can also help illustrate a point, right? We just talked about how the changes you're going to make Jackson Dart look better in this offense are changes you could have made with Russell Wilson and still have a veteran back there. You mentioned Daniel Jones, right? And Daniel Jones is like the biggest indictment piece that people have against Daboll right now. They're like, bro, like, look what the Colts are doing with Daniel Jones. Look what you never did with Daniel Jones. You want to know what the Colts are doing with Daniel Jones, Wig? They've run the ball 100 times in 3 games. Yeah. That's what they're doing with Daniel Jones. Only the Buffalo Bills have run the ball more, and we know Josh Allen is a lot of those. Daniel Jones is not running the ball the way Josh Allen is. I don't have his stats right in front of me, but we all know Danny Dimes is not the runner that Josh Allen is, right? The Indianapolis Colts are one of 2 teams that have run the ball 100 times. It's them and the Bills. Everybody else is under 100 other times. The Philadelphia Eagles running the ball a whole bunch. I almost said a bad word, a whole bunch. The New York Giants, 71 times.
Still,
they've run the ball 30 times less than the Indianapolis Colts. That's a whole game plus usually worth of runs that they're behind the Indianapolis Colts. You want to know part of the reason your quarterback is struggling is because all you're doing is dropping back and passing the ball. And I understand you're behind in a lot of these games, yada, yada, yada. People go, they abandon the run way too quickly. You're down 1 or 2 scores in the third quarter, and you're just throwing the leather off the ball. It's ridiculous. It's panic is what it is. It's desperation is what it is, and that's why you're struggling. I know Tyrone Tracy got hurt, but dang it, like you have other backs out there. Run the stinking football, protect your quarterback, don't put him back there, and don't let opposing defenses just know that you're passing the ball every day down.
Yeah, that's not an excuse either, because they had the one game against Dallas where it was like 91-89 or something. It was a basketball score basically. But outside of that, their game the other night against the Chiefs was close. They ain't been. It's not like they've been behind a whole bunch all of these games. It's just that they were busy letting Russ cook, and now Russ has cooked them to the point where it's too late for them.
Yep. And let me give the Sun Devil a little bit more love while I have the opportunity. How many yards of offense did Cam Scatterbo have in that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, where it was close until pretty late in that game? About 120. Yeah. So again, point proven. You want to keep yourself in games. Stop being so one-dimensional. And even if you want to pass the ball, Cam Scatterbo had catches in that game as well, producing yards. I mean, look, it's not as easy as it sounds, but man, like you could give yourself a chance before you just hit the panic button, which, yeah, that's exactly what they've done.
Facts. Some other teams need to hit the panic button. Raheem Morris down in Atlanta firing coaches. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make every day feel like anything but just an everyday drive, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, moving along here, we were just talking about Brian Daboll getting fired. He ain't by himself. There's some other dudes in that race passing the baton. They're going to pass that pink slip like a baton, man, in a 4x100 relay. That's what they're going to do. We're going to start with Raheem Morris. There is no reason that the Atlanta Falcons should have looked the way that they looked against the Carolina Panthers, one of the worst teams in the league. And Carolina blew their socks off. And Raheem Morris is already looking around and going, okay, this is somebody's fault. When you start seeing coaches fire coaches and all of that stuff, man, that's a telltale sign. Let's first go to Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons.
Your quarterback has to be better. Your play calling has to be better. Your special teams have to be better. Your defensive line play has to be better. Your coverage has to be better. You have no explosiveness in your offense. Like, your biggest explosive play was a screen pass to Bijan Robinson. This was an offense. This was a defense that you eviscerated twice last year. You scored 38 points in both of those games, and then you got 0.
It's all about the offense, man. Heads are going to roll. If Raheem ain't careful, he's going to be getting run out of Atlanta as well.
Yeah, man. I mean, not only did they put up 0 points. That's bad enough. They only had the opportunity to put up 6, right? Like, their kicker missed 2 field goals. Like, so even if you get those, okay, you lost 30-6. That's not any better. It's one thing if, like, you're getting intercepted in the end zone and doing all this other craziness. Like, at least you're moving the ball. Look, I like Raheem Morris a lot. There weren't a whole lot of suitors for him when he was trying to become a head coach again in the first place. And I think that he kind of understands this is really his last shot at it. He's got an owner who is very old, and I think that matters. You know what I mean? Like, Arthur Blank wants to win a Super Bowl before his time is up. And if he doesn't think it's going the right way with Raheem Morris, he might go a different direction. And I'll tell you right now, Cliff Kingsbury was a pretty hot candidate out there last year, and he might be a pretty hot candidate this year. We'll see what the Commanders' offense does throughout the course of this season. That's still to be seen. But Arthur Blank, man, I'll tell you, these Falcons come in or these Commanders come in and they run the ball or they throw the ball over the yard in Arthur Blank's home. He may be looking at that offense coordinator on the other sideline saying, I wonder what he could do with my quarterback. I wonder what he could do with my receivers. Things like that. Yeah, firing your position coaches. I mean, listen, I can't tell you what the receivers in Atlanta have done and haven't done as far as, following the scheme, and perhaps that's what it boils down to. But I can tell you that, focus, intensity, intention, and all that stuff, attention to detail starts at the top. So, I would find it very hard to believe that the wide receivers in Atlanta are like, well, Raheem Morris cares about detail. Our owner cares. Our GM cares. Everybody else cares. But Ike Hilliard don't care about details.
Right, yeah,
He's the only guy. And because Ike doesn't care about details, we don't care about, that's not usually how that works, right? I'll tell you right now, Wig, Atlanta media already is being highly disrespectful of Marcus Mariota. And I understand things did not go well with Marcus and the Atlanta Falcons. I got it. But there's a radio station in Atlanta that today, Tuesday, as we record this, talked about if Marcus Mariota comes into the Benz, as apparently that's what they call it, the Benz, and beats the Falcons, just fire Raheem Morris on the field. And I'll tell you right now, I don't hope Raheem Morris gets fired. But if that's the attitude, look, man, if you're a media member, you got to pay attention when you talk. Marcus Mariota came out against the Carolina Panthers last year and boat raced them. And before you scoff at that, if you're a Falcons fan, Falcons just got beat 30-0 by those Panthers. He came out in the second half with a deficit against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 18 and led his team back to a win on a last second touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin. Then he came out against the Las Vegas Raiders. I know the Raiders aren't the cream of the crop, but that's what, neither are the Carolina Panthers. And he boat raced the Carolina Panthers. So while things did not go well for Marcus in Atlanta, they might go a little bit better this time in Atlanta when he's with the Commanders. And I'll tell you right now, hearing those comments, I hope that Marcus Mariota gets to start against the Atlanta Falcons. And I hope he takes belt to butt, because this is a family show. And look, if that results in some heads rolling, so be it. But I'll tell you what, man, like I don't think I've heard that type of disrespect about somebody from a non-rival in a long time.
Dave taking the breath. You like Kendrick Lamar. You say you inherit the beef. If somebody stop. And guess what? Dan Quinn too. Dan Quinn got a chance to go back and get a little revenge. That wasn't his fault. That was Shanahan. 28-3 was Shanahan's fault. But we ain't gonna get into that. Let's get to somebody else we love to not necessarily pick on, but tell the truth about with a smile on your face. That is the Cincinnati Bengals. They got some issues. They are the team that went up to play Brian Flores and got boat raced by Carson Wentz. And Flores make a lot of people look dumb, but you ain't supposed to look that bad. Jake Browning smoked the Jaguars in the second half, and you got all those weapons. But they got some problems. Listen to the boys talk about how bad this loss was.
Can you think of a worse game in recent history for the Cincinnati Bengals? 5 fumbles, 2 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns, just totally out of the game by halftime. Not much good to say about this one.
No, not much good to say about it. And I think this was very similar to the Chargers game last year, that first half, if the first half would have became 2 halves and there were more turnovers and it was even uglier. And it's the worst loss in team history. They've never lost by 38 points.
That's heavy, man. That's pretty rich. The Bengals been around a long time, and they had some bad teams, but they did get smoked the other day by a team with a backup quarterback, man. And it's just like, that just goes to show you. Minnesota also lost to Atlanta the week before that. Now, this is the way it works. And Jake Browning came into the game when the Bengals were behind the Jaguars and walked them past Jacksonville and beat them. It's just, you never know in the NFL, but I do know this. Zac Taylor should be in trouble very, very soon.
I mean, here's my thing about the Bengals, man. Like, okay, you fire Zac Taylor. Then what?
Mm-hmm.
Then what? You're going to keep Duke Tobin? You're going to keep the man who's been helping make personnel decisions for the Cincinnati Bengals since before the 2000s? Like, what's going to change? What's really going to change? Because we talked about this way, like, this team has tried to put resources into that defense. Like, they've spent draft capital. They've done some things. They have tried. They've obviously put resources into their offense. I will agree with the dismay. Like, you lose your starting quarterback. Pretty much every team in the NFL loses their starting quarterback. They go, oh, man, like, there we go. There goes your year. But not to this level. Like, not to the level that we just saw from the Bengals, right? Like, that shouldn't have been that bad. Not when you have arguably the best receiver in the NFL and a guy that you say is another number 1, although I disagree. You shouldn't be that bad, right? But if you fire Zac Taylor and you bring in another coach who just has to work for Joe Burrow and give Joe Burrow everything he wants on offense, and then you still have Duke Tobin, who maintains the same scouting staff, the same personnel staff, makes the same decisions in the draft and free agency every year, what do you think is going to change? Like, you can change the steering wheel in the car, but brother, if the engine don't work, you ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? So, like, unless the Bengals are ready to make wholesale changes to their organizational structure, it's pointless. It's pointless. And I wouldn't recommend anybody take that job, even with Joe Burrow there. And that's crazy. That's wild to say. And it sounds like I'm a Joe Burrow hater. I love Joe Burrow. But that organization, we've been talking about this all year. This is the year of hating the Bengals, Wig. We've been talking about this all year. That organization is just dysfunctional. And until they decide to cut it off, reset, it's going to stay that way.
And they've been like it my whole life, and I'm 56 years old. They've been dysfunctional since I was playing in a sandbox somewhere. All right.
Yeah, like 3 years of Houday. After that, it was just nothing, just bungles.
2 more teams to talk about, both of them known for hot and spicy food, Tennessee and Texas. We're talking about Houston. But I tell you what, it's getting hot somewhere else, and that's the seat in that coach's office. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, y'all, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Y'all know football season, man. It is right here. We're in the thick of the first quadrant of the football season, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5. That's it, 5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. You heard me, 300. I tell you what, I love FanDuel, man, because it's the most consistent. You can look up data, get information prior to you making your selections. It is just absolutely fun to play, and it keeps you engaged, whether your team is winning or losing. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, moving along with my man David Harrison here. We've been firing people, but no, they've been firing themselves. Let's correct that. They're firing themselves here all around the National Football League. I'm going to start in Houston because the Jaguars, I was in the press box the other day when the Jaguars played the Texans. I said this earlier. The Jaguars kind of made me mad because they should have won the game by 2 touchdowns. But you let a team hang around that has Daniil Hunter, that has Will Anderson. You know, they're going to be able to make some plays. Dalton Schultz had a pretty decent game against them. And, you know, it turns out today I can see what part of their problem was. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got released, cut. Super Bowl champion C.J. Gardner-Johnson let go by the Houston Texans. He might not be the only one being let go. My man, John Hickman, wasn't too happy about that loss.
The unforeseen has happened. The sky isn't falling, but the sky has fell as the Houston Texans start the season 0-3, losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm John Hickman of the Locked On Texan podcast, your team every day. It was a rough watch for the Houston Texans offense. And defensively, I mean, they did everything they possibly could. A late turnover by Jalen Petrie. You even see C.J. Stroud finally connect for a touchdown with Nico Collins, but penalties, miscues, bad communication, the continuing of starting drives, 3rd and long, 2nd and long, continues to hurt and hinder the Houston Texans.
That sounds like everything that John Hickman just described. John Hickman from Locked On Texans, of course. Everything that he described, if you look up bad football team, there's a checklist, right? I think he just hit each and every one of them when everything seems to be going wrong. And I like DeMeco Ryans, but here's why he's in a bit of a quandary. Their defense has actually played well, man. They ain't hardly gave up any points. I think they gave up 17 to Jacksonville, and I think they gave up 14 to the Rams. They haven't given up points. He is just saddled with offensive people that have a connection to Nick Caserio. And this is the same thing that you just said about the Bengals, but on a little bit of a different scale. Yep. Caserio ain't going to blame himself. He's not going to fire himself. He's going to look around and try to find someone, I believe, to blame so he can find someone else that'll come in and do the things that he wants done the way he wants them to be done.
I would tell you this is the coach I've been waiting to talk about, because I think there's something that every front office needs to look at. Every decision maker in the NFL needs to look at. If I fire my coach today, how quickly does he have another job? DeMeco Ryans, you fire this man on Monday, he's got a job on Tuesday. Yeah. You fire him on Monday morning, he'll have a job by Monday afternoon. He'll be having dinner with a new boss before you find a new coach.
Be a special assistant to the head coach or an advisor of some sort.
Yeah, right. Maybe not a head coach. Yeah, 100%. Maybe not a head coach, but you look at Robert Saleh. As soon as Robert Saleh hit the open market, he had offers. So people were like, hey, come to this staff. You're not the problem. DeMeco Ryans is not the problem. That defense is not the problem. That offense is the problem. That offensive line is the problem. And the offensive play caller is the problem. It was the problem before. It's the problem now. The solution is Mike McDaniel. That's your solution. You wait for Mike McDaniel to get fired by the Miami Dolphins because that's coming. And then you bring him in. And you know what? I bring him in this season. Listen, Houston Texans fans, buckle up. Because I'll tell you right now, and I don't think the Texans are going to do this, but I would do this. Because what's his name? Nick Casey is not it. The offensive coordinator in Houston. Pretty sure. Sorry if I got it wrong. He's not it. And the second Mike McDaniel gets fired by the Miami Dolphins, I'm telling Mike, hey, come on in here. You want to take over now, or you want to sit as a year as an advisor, like you just said, and analyze? Whatever you decide to do. You want to come in right now and start installing? Look, y'all, hey, it's October, and we're starting over, which means, GM, get ready to scout all the offensive linemen you can, because we're going to need some O-linemen in the draft next year. We got to rebuild this offensive line without Laramie Tunsil in it. CJ, don't die. Mike, figure this thing out. 2026, is the year of the bull. We're coming back to take over the AFC South. Until then, Jacksonville, Indianapolis, maybe Tennessee, enjoy the battle. We'll see you next year. D'Amico Ryans, those players will die for that, man. That defense is not the problem, like you just said. That offense is the problem. They got the tools. They just need the architect. They haven't found the architect. Find a different architect. Go out of the architect pool that you've been trying to pull from. Mike McDaniel is your answer if he's not burned out and doesn't need a year off.
Yeah, and so the way I see it, I agree with you. There's some teams that I believe you got to – if you're Houston, you got to watch yourself against, and here's why. Anthony Campanile, I don't know if you've seen what he's done with the Jaguars. Jaguar fans seem to think he's going to get hired, right? Mm-hmm. So when you see teams that win, you always wonder if when they win these games, who's going to hire these coaches? I'll tell you another coach that's going to probably get a job. And Campanile Campanile is a disciplinarian who coached in Miami with Vic Fangio. So these jobs start filling up. You talked about Cliff Kingsbury. Joe Brady, with what he's been able to do since Brian Daboll left Buffalo with that offense. If Joe Brady is going to get a good job, then now you're looking at Washington and you're looking at Jacksonville that needs a defensive coordinator, and you want D'Amico's going. That's the kind of job he would take. You look at Washington needing an offensive coordinator. Mike McDaniel is sitting right there, and if Joe Brady gets a job and you're Mike McDaniel, you're going to Houston, Buffalo, or Washington. And I tell you who's number 3, Houston. That's why I think you're right. You got to move fast. There's going to be another job open too. Yep. Check this out from my man Tyler Rowland.
There you have it, folks. Brian Callahan gives up play calling duties for the Tennessee Titans offense, and a move that I think is just step one of a 2-step process that leads to him no longer being the head coach for the
I'm going to stop him right there because that's the point that I was trying to make. We can already see what's happening. But by the way, he's terrible down in I don't even know how he got the job in Tennessee. But Brian Callahan is terrible. And even though he's bad and the offensive line isn't great, you can still see the promise in that young kid. So that's going to be another job that people are going to want.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you have a young quarterback that hopefully hasn't been ruined, right? It's Caleb Williams situation all over again. The kid has talent. I watched the Titans game. Commanders played on a Thursday night in week 2. I had the opportunity to watch football on Sunday. I watched the Titans. You know what I mean? I wanted to see Cam Ward, and the kid's got potential. I mean, look, Mike McDaniel as an offensive coordinator there could be decent. Maybe then Calvin Ridley might actually have a season someday. That's a running joke. But anyway, I mean, look, the Titans job is not super attractive right now, but what's attractive about it is that it really doesn't have any solidified players on that team outside of right now Cam Ward, right? Like you have kind of a lump of clay that as long as you can come in there and get your hands on it, you can potentially make your mark. I don't know if you remember, Wig. I wasn't really impressed with that hire in the first place in Tennessee. I wasn't super blown away by it. But you look at this list, man. Daboll, like, don't get me wrong, Daboll will end up on a staff. He's got enough connections in the league. He will end up on a staff. But people are not going to be climbing over each other to get him on their staff. No. Raheem Morris, same thing. Callahan, same thing. Mike McDaniel, even maybe a little bit same thing. D'Amico and him have history, so I think there's a tie there potentially that could lead to that. Obviously, Mike McDaniel and Dan Quinn have a history. You mentioned Washington, things like that. But Callahan, absolutely not. Like, there's just a trend here. Like, the guys who are not going to be clamored over, okay, move on. But again, and Zac Taylor's another one. But like I said, a lot of these franchises, man, they have internal franchise problems that they're just blaming on their head coaches, and then they want to know why every head coach fails. Well, it's you. It ain't them. It's you. So, you can change the dance, but if you don't change the playlist, it's still going to suck.
It's still going to suck. Still going to be the same old party, no matter what kind of entertainment you have. You are entertained here twice a day on Locked On NFL with Tyler Rowland early in the morning because the madman will wake you up like a double shot of espresso, and then you just slide through in the barbershop, and we start firing people and getting all up in people's business like we always do. Check my man David out on Locked On Commanders, and we thank you. I'm glad we didn't waste your time. I had fun doing this, so I know you had fun listening. Hopefully you'll come back tomorrow and check us out here on Locked On NFL.